God would know.
In the end, Athelstan didn't succumb to the temptation. However, it was actually a test from Ragnar. On the other side, Earl took advantage of the night and ordered his steward and slaves to bury the stolen treasure. The boy couldn't understand why they had to bury the gold and silver treasures. The steward truthfully told them that their gods promised that after death, their souls would enter Valhalla, where they could use the accumulated wealth. But the wealth needed guardians.
You've already seen enough of this life, boy.
After saying this, the steward killed the boy. The poor boy became the guardians of the treasure. Time passed, and Athelstan's hair grew out, which made him feel deeply remorseful. To protect his faith, Athelstan took a risk and stole a small knife to start shaving his head. Even as blood flowed, he did not give up. However, in reality, Ragnar's family did not treat him as a slave but provided him with a room. Athelstan's fear of Ragnar began to diminish gradually. During a drinking session, Athelstan truthfully told Ragnar about the situation in the western continent. He revealed that in the land of England, where he resided, there were 4 kingdoms. His own kingdom was Northumbria, ruled by a powerful king named El. Ragnar couldn't understand why their mighty kingdom would be plundered. Athelstan helplessly explained that they had never anticipated that someone would disrespect God and raid monasteries. Ragnar expressed his desire to learn Athelstan's language, and Athelstan agreed. The next day, Ragnar returned to Earl's house with the monk. He informed Earl that Athelstan had mentioned a town near his monastery, where other monasteries existed, and endless treasures could be found. It was at this moment that Athelstan realized he had been deceived by Ragnar. Ragnar wanted to raid his own kingdom once again. Ragnar hoped that Earl would return his ship, and in return, he would bring back all the plundered treasures for Earl. Earl believed he could do it himself, but Ragnar tempted him by suggesting that someone with more experience and a willingness to sacrifice should go instead. After considering it, Earl proposed a condition: his trusted man, Knute, must accompany them. Earl wanted to not only prevent Ragnar from secretly keeping the treasure but also learn Ragnar's navigation techniques so that he could kill Ragnar afterward. On the way back home, Athelstan felt heartbroken. Ragnar had deceived him, making him an accomplice in the plunder of his own people. Ragnar took out a dagger and cut off the monk's collar, setting him free. However, this was Viking territory, and he had no chance of escape. Helplessly, he had no choice but to follow Ragnar. Upon their return, Ragnar agreed to let his wife accompany him. However, there would be no one to take care of the children. Ragnar pointed at Athelstan, and Bjorn reluctantly accepted. Lager the warned he sternly.
If any harm befalls my children, I will tear the lungs out of your body. Priest.
This was the second expedition of the westward team. Just as everyone was preparing, Knute stared lustfully at Lagertha. Rollo noticed and angrily warned him that if he dared to have any improper thoughts about Lagertha, he would be killed instantly. With the experience from their first expedition, the group successfully landed on the western continent. However, due to the previous raid, the English had strengthened their defenses along the coastline. The two sides met in direct combat. But the English were no match for the mighty Vikings. However, one soldier managed to escape and reported the Viking landing to the king. This was the Vikings' second expedition to the west, and with the experience from the first one, they smoothly landed on the western continent. However, due to the previous raid, the English had strengthened their defenses along the coast. When the two sides met, direct combat ensued, but the English were no match for the mighty Vikings. Unnoticed by everyone, a soldier quietly escaped and reported the news to El. The proud Ragnar paid little attention to this matter. With his entourage of over 20 men, he prepared for plundering. Guided by their captive, they quickly found a coastal town. Ragnar was delighted at the thought of finding a great amount of gold and treasure ahead. Impatient, Rollo urged Ragnar to move quickly, but Ragnar seemed unfazed. Ragnar knew that many English people would be at church on Sundays, making it the perfect time for a surprise attack. The next day, when the church bells rang, Ragnar immediately ordered his small team to attack. At that moment, the residents and guards were all inside the church hall, leaving their weapons outside. The Vikings stormed into the church and swiftly dealt with the guards. Ragnar told the people that they were only after riches and wouldn't harm them as long as they didn't resist. Leading his men, they looted the valuable items in the hall. Meanwhile, Knute broke into a house and pinned a beautiful girl to a table. Lager witnessed this and tried to stop him, but Knute pushed her aside. Lager drew her dagger and stabbed him in the back. Enraged, Knute raised his axe and killed the girl beneath him. As he prepared to attack Lager, she stabbed him in the waist. With the looting complete, they gathered in the square to prepare for their return voyage when Ragnar noticed Knute was missing. Upon inquiry, Lager informed her husband about what had just happened. Ragnar knew things were not going well because Knute was Earl's trusted ally. To make matters worse, when they returned to the shore, they found a large army of Earl's troops waiting for them. Facing the overwhelming English forces, the Vikings showed no fear. They showed the English what a shield wall truly meant.
Shield wall!
The terrifying aspect of the Viking shield wall was that their circular shields formed an impenetrable barrier. The enemy army became crowded and unable to advance, while the Vikings could shoot arrows at them at any time, killing them off. When the enemy suffered heavy casualties, the Vikings opened up their shield wall and engaged in a frenzy of slaughter. Witnessing the ferocity of the Viking warriors, the leader quickly fled on horseback.
How could it happen, my lord Wigius?
I have never in my life seen men fight as these Northmen fight. Believe me, there's something devilish in the way they look, in their lack of fear in the face of death.
Who are they?
We captured 2 of them who were guarding their boat. We couldn't understand anything they said at all, except one word. Ragnar.
As a result, El learned Ragnar's name. After burying their fallen comrades, they returned to the harbor once again with a large amount of plunder. The people welcomed Ragnar, seeing him as a hero in their hearts. Earl observed all of this and felt that Ragnar was threatening his position. Noticing that Knute hadn't returned, he inquired about his whereabouts. Ragnar admitted to killing Knute, and Earl immediately ordered his arrest. To bring about Ragnar's downfall, Earl enlisted the help of Ragnar's brother, Rollo. He manipulated their relationship and promised to marry his only daughter to Rollo, ensuring his succession as Earl. Even his beautiful and voluptuous wife was used to tempt Rollo, with the aim of framing Ragnar for intentional murder. Under these temptations, Rollo began to waver. The next day, the trial assembly officially began with Earl and the people present. Earl accused Ragnar of committing crimes without reason, killing his trusted ally, and accused him of wanting to keep the treasure for himself. Just as everyone seemed to agree with Earl's claims, Lager stepped forward and confessed to killing Knute, revealing his attempt to assault her. However, Earl dismissed her words by claiming that they were husband and wife, and he had eyewitnesses to support his version. When Rollo stepped forward, everyone was shocked.
You say you are a witness to the death of Knute?
Ragnar Lothbrok killed him. What Ragnar Lothbrok has sworn is true. Your half-brother was caught raping a Saxon woman, then he attempted to rape Ragnar's lawful wife, Lagatha, the shield maiden.
Earl was dumbfounded as Rollo's testimony declared Ragnar innocent. At night, the expedition team celebrated with a party, and Lager thanked Rollo.
I didn't do it for him. I did it for you, shield maiden.
Rollo's words left Ragnhild stunned. When everyone was intoxicated, a large group of assassins stormed into the room, underestimating their strength. The small team defeated the assassins within minutes. By the time Earl discovered what happened, the assassins he sent were already dead bodies. At that moment, Ragnar was engaged in a fierce internal struggle, deciding whether to rebel or continue being manipulated. With the old man's scream, the massacre officially began. At Earl's command, soldiers mercilessly slaughtered the villagers, who could only flee for their lives. Earl coldly watched as he was willing to sacrifice an entire village to kill Ragnar. Unaware of what was happening in the village, Ragnar was hunting in the mountains. Upon hearing the screams, Lagertha immediately armed her son and daughter, instructing them to hide and protect themselves. She knew Ragnar would come to their rescue, and indeed, Ragnar turned his head and rushed back to the village upon hearing the screams. The village was engulfed in flames, and the slaughter continued. Ragnar charged down the mountain, demonstrating godlike strength. His thigh was deeply cut open, but he fought with all his might and killed 2 people for the sake of his family. Just as he silently snuck back into the house, an arrow pierced through his body. Earl's men had already discovered him, but Ragnar endured the excruciating pain and snapped the arrow. Returning to the house, Ragnar lifted the wooden plank from the floor, allowing his family to escape to the boat for safety. To buy time for his family's escape, Ragnar chose to face Earl and his soldiers alone. Covered in blood and with his leg wound forcing him to kneel before Earl, Ragnar dropped his battle axe, signaling his surrender. Looking down on him, Earl asked if Ragnar pleaded guilty. Ragnar, while surrendering, glanced discreetly in the direction of his family's escape. After ensuring his family had escaped, Ragnar stood up and began to resist. He forcefully threw aside an enemy's battle axe and seized a horse in the chaos, making his escape. His family, hiding on the boat, watched their home engulfed in flames, feeling a mix of emotions. Meanwhile, 3 cavalrymen chased after Ragnar, but he persisted, dismounting and evading them on a hillside. A returning soldier near a small creek spotted him, but Ragnar, bloodied, managed to reach the mountaintop. Hopelessly, he realized there was a steep cliff just meters ahead. With the soldiers closing in behind him, Ragnar knew he had no way out. Closing his eyes, he leapt off the cliff, and the soldiers, too afraid to look, retreated. However, Ragnar's family happened to be nearby when he fell into the water. Athelstan hurriedly jumped down to save Ragnar.
I don't know, Lord.
Earl learned of Ragnar's leap into the sea and ordered his men to search for him. If they couldn't find the body, they were not to return. Severely wounded, Ragnar was taken to Floki's residence. Floki was Ragnar's most trusted and loyal friend. Having some knowledge of medicine, Floki performed surgery on Ragnar. He used a heated surgical knife to disinfect and cauterize Ragnar's wounds, employing unconventional methods to save his life. During his recovery, members of the expedition team visited Ragnar. He told Ragnar that the Count was spying on them and that he escaped from the surveillance and came here. Floki finished cooking and welcomed his brother, who was taken aback when he saw Floki's beautiful girlfriend. At night, Floki invited him to sleep together.
If you don't come now, I promise you will regret it.